Hello, I'm Annalouise, and today I'm going to be talking about magic conversations. Have you ever had conversations with complete strangers that have felt really special, like they've changed something inside of you, or it's changed something inside of the person you're speaking to, and you've been surprised and awed by how a conversation emerged with that person in that way? I hope that you've experienced that, and maybe you experience it frequently. It's something that I seem to experience a lot and I totally love. And so I wanted to share with you a magic conversation I've had in the last few days, and also my top tips for how to encourage more of those conversations into our lives, and to be able to open up to the chance meetings that are just waiting to happen all around us if we're in the right place for it. How does that sound? So first of all, I'm going to share with you a lovely meeting I had just a few days ago. I was walking along by the sea and a bicycle passed me, and it was loaded up, really loaded up with panniers and stuff on the handlebars, and I was sort of instantly curious because in this time of the pandemic, don't see that many people travelling around on touring bikes, and I was like trying to work out, I was sort of looking, oh, is he touring? Is he just living from his bicycle? I was just sort of, and he was cycling on past me. I was like, oh, it'd be so interesting to hear his story. And then I was like, oh, I wonder if I can catch up with him. I don't think it's going to be possible because he was on bike and I was on foot. And at that moment, as I had that thought, he pulled over, and I was like, fantastic. So I carried on walking and caught up with him and struck up a conversation. And he is from Argentina. And he spent the last 6 months on his bicycle. First of all, he did the Camino de Santiago on his bicycle, and he was camping because nearly all the hostels are closed at the moment. So he camped all the way through northern Spain. For anyone that doesn't know, it's a pilgrimage route across northern Spain. And then he went down through Portugal, spent a couple of months travelling down through Portugal. And then from Portugal, he had come all the way to where we met in this little village called Santiago de la Ribera. And he was planning to head on up the coast of Spain and then across to Italy, spend some time around Sicily, southern Italy, and then when restrictions permitted, get across to the UK and spend some time there as well. And it filled my heart for a lot of reasons. It filled my heart to see someone travelling at this time, someone with that sense of liberty, that they're not feeling restricted by the context around us all at the moment. And it filled my heart because of like the simple life he's living. And I said, oh, roughly what sort of number of kilometres do you do a day? And he was like, you know what, I just really see where the day takes me. I don't know where I'm going to stop. So it just depends. It just depends. And I loved that as well, the sense of real trusting the journey. And he didn't really know where he'd end up, but having a magnificent experience. And it also really filled me up because only a few weeks ago, I thought to myself, it's just a passing thought, I was like, oh, it'd be really nice to do the Camino de Santiago. And then the immediate thought that came on the back of that was, oh, well, it won't be possible this year. And so as soon as he said he'd done the Camino, I just felt like someone was knocking me on the head. I just felt like I was just getting like that wake-up call when we're like, oh, okay, that was so clearly a limiting belief of mine, you know, oh, it's not something I could do this year. Of course I can do it this year if I choose to do it. And So that was just lovely. I love moments like that when I'm confronted with my beliefs and I get to see the reality of them rather than what my mind is creating. So yeah, it was very inspiring, and we shared numbers because I figured that if he does ever get to the UK, there might be some people I know that would really love to offer their garden for him to camp in one night, and to be able to hear his stories and the wonders of his journey, and to be equally as inspired as I was. And what the conversation probably, I don't know, maybe lasted 5 or 10 minutes, right? Really, it wasn't a long conversation, but it really has touched me deeply and has filled me up. And the whole day I was like, wow, it's so beautiful to meet such an inspiring person. And that's the truth of magic conversations. They have way more power than a regular conversation. And a short interaction can feel so much bigger and so much more meaningful. And I've certainly found in the past that with my magic conversations that I've had with people can change the course of my life and also their lives. So what are my top tips for having more magic conversations? I'm curious, firstly, what do you find helps you connect into those special conversations? Do you have a way of interacting with people? Or and if you do have tips that we can all share, please do post below, because this is such a learning experience for us all, and I think it's such a gift to be able to create the environment that we can all connect with each other more powerfully and more beautifully. So here are some of my tips. The first one is to trust the impulse. Like if our bodies are like pulling us towards connecting to someone, it's so easy to say no, right? It's so easy to go, I'm feeling a bit shy, or they might not want to talk to me, or this isn't a good moment, or they're passing on their bicycle and they won't stop, all of these things. And I think it's a learning process just to keep trusting the impulse. It's like, actually, I feel a true impulse here. I trust my body. I'm going to reach out. And what's the worst can happen? What's lovely is that my sense is that 99% of people want to connect, and they want the opportunity to connect. For him, I think it was a blessing as well, because he's obviously not talking to so many people traveling alone, and so it's a mutual process. And the next thing, which I think is a top tip for me, is to express appreciation and wonder for whatever has drawn you to them. So for me, I was like, wow, you're on your bicycle, and where have you been? And I was just really expressing a lot of appreciation and wonder about his trip. And that creates a beautiful, safe space to come into deeper connection. And it means that my field is really open and curious and inquisitive, and it's an expansive space. I had another example of a really, really magical connection where I was walking along this remote footpath in Italy back in November time, and someone came up from behind me, and I turned around, and it was a beautiful young lady, and her heart energy was just like really apparent to me. And so I just turned around and said hello, and she was walking faster and was quite sort of focused in the way she was walking. But I had this impulse to express something to her, and so as she passed, I said, wow, you've got such a strong heart energy. And she just turned to me and looked at me and started crying. And just, wow, I don't feel like that right now. And in that moment, it was such an invitation to connect really deeply. So having expressed the appreciation to her about her heart energy, and then for it to obviously bring up a response in her, we were able to dive super deep. And within 5 minutes, it felt like she'd had a fundamental shift in her reality. She'd gone from being in a place of feeling really closed, and she'd actually travelled all the way down from Switzerland to southern Italy on her own in her car, and was staying in this remote little place on top of a cliffside to help sort of come into her own truth. And she was in that real lost soul space, but just coming into another human connection and me being her mirror, she was able to suddenly realise what was her purpose, and it all became clear and everything fell away, and she left totally joyful. And then the next part is, so the next tip is trusting what wants to happen. You know, what wants to happen in this moment. Is it about sharing deep space with this person? Is it about sharing information? Is it about some ongoing connection? Like, I think the moment's magic enough as it is, but I always tune in. It's like, does it feel called up for me to share details with this person? And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. With this lady I'm talking about, it totally did. And we then met up several times a few days later and had some other magical experiences together. So, yeah, just really questioning what's invited here, you know. And then that leads on to my last tip, which is asking ourselves afterwards, if it hasn't dawned on us already, what does this magical moment invite us to change within ourselves? What have I received? What transmission have I received from this person that ignites something that wants to shift? So for the example with the bicycle person the other day, it was obvious, right? It was that like belief of like, oh, I won't be able to do something this year. And then what was nice is as I walked away with that, like reframing that belief, I was able to come into real clarity as whether actually I did want to do the Camino this year or not. And I could just feel in my truth, oh, okay, so actually that's not necessarily how I want to spend my time, but I wasn't limited by a sense that it's not possible. So I was able to inhabit my truth more fully. So those are my 4 top tips. So the first one is to trust the impulse, trust the body, trust the impulse to connect. The second one is to express appreciation and wonder to the other person for who they are or what they're doing, and be curious and present to what information is there, what's called up, and seeing what's invited. So really seeing what's invited here, what's invited for them or for myself. And lastly, what is it that invites us to change in ourselves? And taking that away in our little suitcase, our imaginary internal suitcase, to receive over and over again, and also to share with others. And that's the last part of magical conversations, is that not only do they fill me up and the other people up, I then often end up communicating to other people about them like I'm communicating to you now, and it can inspire all of us to take on something new and refreshing and revitalizing. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I invite you to contemplate what magical conversations you might have had in your life, and also perhaps what gets in your way of having more magical conversations, and see whether you would like to commit to having more magical conversations. And so next time you feel the impulse, just to take it and let me know what happens. I would love to hear about it. So I'm Annalouise. If you want to hear more about my work, go to www.resonating.love. Please do subscribe to the channel and press like if you have done. And please do share this video if you think it will inspire someone, if it put a smile on their face, or you feel it's something that will touch them in some way that's positive. Wishing you a wonderful week and lots of connections and magic.